I'm Andy Panko, owner of Tenon Financial. Welcome to Retirement Planning Demystified. This video will explain everything you need to know about variable annuities. Be sure to watch to the end where I discuss when a variable annuity may be worth considering. But before we start, remember this video is only general explanations and education. It's not specific tax, legal, or investment advice. Before considering acting on anything you see in this video, first consult with your tax, legal, or investment advisor. While a variable annuity obviously has the word annuity in it, it's actually quite different from a traditional plain vanilla annuity you may be thinking of. In its purest form, a basic annuity, otherwise known as an income annuity, is where you hand over a lump sum of money to an insurance company, and in return they guarantee to give you a fixed monthly payment for the rest of your life. For more information on income annuities, check out my other video, What is an Income Annuity? While variable annuities usually offer the option to be converted into an income annuity, there really aren't many other similarities. So why is it still called an annuity? Well, even though different types of annuities look and act very different from one another, they all share two common denominators. First, they are products created, sold, and managed by insurance companies. And second, all monies in them grow tax deferred, where you don't have to pay any income tax until you eventually take money out. There are three general types of annuities: income, variable, and indexed. And for each of these three main types, there are subtypes of immediate or deferred. This video will discuss variable annuities, specifically deferred variable annuities. There are immediate versions of variable annuities, but they are not nearly as common as their deferred counterparts. The term deferred refers to when you start receiving income payments. When they are deferred, they start at some point after 1 year, whereas with any form of immediate annuity, income payments would start within the first year. As you'll see in this video, variable annuities usually fall into the deferred classification, not immediate. In a nutshell, a variable annuity is an insurance product where you give money to an insurance company and instruct them to invest it in one or a combination of multiple mutual funds they make available to you. The amount of money you put in is called your contract value. Your money stays invested in those mutual funds during what's called the accumulation phase of the variable annuity. During this phase, which is generally multiple years, your contract value may go up or may go down in value. It all depends on how your mutual funds perform. But like any investment, you obviously hope it grows over time. During the accumulation phase, the variable annuity essentially behaves like a regular investment in mutual funds because your money is actually invested in mutual funds. But there's one added feature you get by investing through a variable annuity as opposed to just directly investing in the funds yourself. You get a guaranteed death benefit. In most variable annuities, if you die while still owning the contract, the insurance company will pay to your beneficiaries no less than the amount of money you put in, less any withdrawals you've since taken. For example, assume you originally put $100,000 in, and then it drops to $80,000 because the mutual funds perform poorly. If you then die, your beneficiaries will be paid $100,000 by the insurance company, even though your contract value was only $80,000 at the time of your death. But that life insurance component isn't free. You pay for that through what's called the mortality and expense fee, which I'll touch on in a bit. Now, after a variable annuity's accumulation phase comes the payout phase, which is where you can take some or all of your money out of the contract. Before talking about the options for taking money out in the payout phase, I have to mention that you can potentially take some money out during the accumulation phase. Variable annuities are contracts that last for multiple years, generally up to 10 years. Most contracts allow you to take out up to 10% of your contract value each year without paying any fees or penalties. But if you ever want or need to take out more than that, you'll have to pay steep fees known as surrender charges, which I'll later expand on. For now, let's assume you keep all your money in the contract until the payout phase, at which point you need to decide how you want to take your money out. There are different options for getting money out of a variable annuity. After you're past the point where you're no longer subject to surrender charges, you can simply make a full withdrawal where you take out all your contract value. You may owe taxes on some of it, which I'll discuss later, but the money is nonetheless yours at that point. Or you can instead do a partial withdrawal where you leave some money invested in the mutual funds and take the rest out. You can also choose to annuitize your contract value. Annuitization is the process of converting a contract value to a guaranteed stream of lifetime income payments. In other words, it's the act of turning your variable annuity into a plain vanilla income annuity. And like almost all income annuities, once you decide to annuitize, the decision is usually irrevocable. And one of the common additional features of variable annuities is to buy what's called an income rider. This is an extra feature you can purchase that guarantees you'll receive a certain amount of income or withdrawals for the rest of your life. One of the most common income riders is a Guaranteed Lifetime Withdrawal Benefit, or GLWB rider. As the name implies, this feature guarantees you'll be able to withdraw certain amounts from the annuity for the rest of your life, even if the contract value depletes to zero. Now, before getting into an example, I want to explain the fees you'll typically see in a variable annuity. Almost all variable annuities have the same overall structure of fees. Some of the fees are automatically built into the contract and are not optional. Others are optional based on whether you add any extra bells or whistles, aka riders. The first typical fee is an administrative fee. This pays the insurer's cost in operating the separate account that holds the mutual funds, administering the contract, processing payments, providing regulatory reporting, and so forth. Next is a mortality and expense fee. This compensates the insurer for the risk of income annuity recipients living longer than expected and/or death benefit recipients dying sooner than expected. Even if you don't annuitize your contract, the insurer still makes you chip in a bit in case people who do annuitize their contracts live longer than expected and therefore get paid more than the insurance company originally anticipated. And recall, variable annuities have a death benefit. Part of your mortality and expense fee also helps the insurance company deal with the risk of more contract holders than expected dying early. The next fee is an annual fee, which is a nominal flat fee that's usually waived if your contract value is larger than a certain amount. Variable annuities also have surrender fees, which are charges you're assessed if your withdrawals are greater than your eligible annual withdrawal amount, which is typically 10% per year. Here's the actual schedule of surrender fees for a sample 5-year variable annuity contract currently sold by a major insurer. As an example, if you put $100,000 into the contract, you can only withdraw 10% of it, or $10,000, in the first year without any penalty. Any amount you withdraw above and beyond $10,000 will incur a 7% penalty. These surrender fee levels decrease over the life of the contract and eventually go away, at which point you can withdraw your whole contract with no penalty. The next standard variable annuity fee is the built-in expense ratios of the mutual funds in which you invest. All mutual funds have fees built into them, whether you invest in them directly on your own or through a variable annuity. These fees compensate the fund company for managing, marketing, and distributing the fund. Like all mutual fund expense ratios, you don't directly pay the fee per se. Instead, the mutual fund company deducts it from your account so that your invested balance decreases a bit each year. In addition to the standard or typical fees built into all variable annuity contracts, there are a few other optional fees you may have to pay, though you'll only have to pay these fees if you elect to purchase these additional riders in your annuity. If you buy an income rider, you'll have to pay an extra income rider fee. Also, if you purchase any additional life insurance options in your variable annuity, you'll have to pay an extra death benefit fee. Now let's walk through an example of an actual variable annuity to see how everything works. All of these features and figures you're about to see are from a variable annuity currently available from a major insurer. Assume you put $100,000 into the contract, and the contract length is 5 years. The 5-year surrender fee schedule I showed a little while ago is the actual surrender schedule for this particular annuity. This variable annuity gives you a choice of approximately 100 different mutual funds to invest in. I picked one of the average funds from that roster. It's classified as a balanced fund, which invests approximately 60% in stocks and 40% in bonds. Its total expense ratio is 0.92%. Now that's higher than the industry average mutual fund expense ratio, but it's unfortunately the average of the 100 or so funds available in this particular annuity. As for the other fees, there's an annual 0.25% administrative fee, a 0.95% mortality and expense fee, and an additional flat annual fee of $50. However, that annual fee is waived if the contract size is greater than $50,000. Let's look at how this would have performed over the last 10 years. We'll assume you bought the contract at the beginning of 2010. The box on the bottom shows the mutual fund's returns in each of the last 10 years. The graph above shows what your variable annuity contract would have been at the end of each of the last 10 years. Recall you originally invested $100,000. and we assume that was at the beginning of 2010. The mutual fund you were invested in increased 10.24% that year, but your account only went up about 9% to about $109,000. Why did your contract perform worse than the actual mutual fund you were invested in? Because of the administrative fee and the mortality and expense fee you have to pay every year. Those two fees combine 1.2% annually. So every year, your contract value growth is going to lag that of the mutual fund by about 1.2%. Let's see how this would have played out over 10 years. This graph again shows your annual contract value each year. Those are the orange bars. The gray bars show how that same $100,000 would have grown if it was invested directly in the mutual fund without going through the variable annuity. As you can see, the additional 1.2% in annual fees of the variable annuity would have really eaten into your growth over the course of 10 years. In this case, $100,000 investment in the mutual fund would have grown to about $203,000, whereas that same investment through the variable annuity would have only grown to about $180,000. So is the variable annuity a bad choice compared to just investing in the mutual fund directly? Well, that depends. Remember that the variable annuity has a built-in death benefit. In this example, if you were to have died at any point during the last 10 years, your beneficiaries would have been guaranteed to receive at least $100,000, even if the mutual fund performed poorly and your contract value was something less than $100,000 when you died. But you pay a fee for that death benefit guarantee. Also, the variable annuity gave you the option to have annuitized your contract value to a lifetime stream of income. You additionally pay a fee for that privilege as well. And you have to pay some fee to the insurance company for issuing and maintaining the contract, whereas you wouldn't have to have paid that fee if you just invested directly in the mutual fund. So if the death benefit and option to annuitize were important to you, then maybe you'd be okay sacrificing some investment growth to have those features. But if you're just looking to invest without the life insurance component or annuitization option, a variable annuity is a bad decision because the fees will eat away at your gains, as we saw on this graph. Now, one of the reasons people buy variable annuities is for the income riders, which give the guaranteed ability to withdraw certain amounts of money from the product every year for the rest of your life. The selling point of them is that they let you participate in the investment growth, but will guarantee some minimum level of income even if your investments do poorly over time. But like all aspects of insurance products, that additional guarantee comes with an extra cost. Let's look at how these riders work. Here's our same example variable annuity as before, but this time with the addition of an income rider, specifically a guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefit or GLWB rider. I'll explain how these features work in a minute, but for now, know that this particular rider has a 7% guaranteed annual credit and a 5% guaranteed annual withdrawal. The cost for this rider is an extra 1.8% per year. There are some other terms to understand with these riders. First, as we've already discussed, is the contract value. That's the amount of money you put into the contract plus or minus any investment gains or losses in the mutual fund and minus the annual fee deductions. With income riders, there's also something I'm generically calling a protected value. Different insurance companies use different names for this, but they're all functionally the same thing. It's basically a parallel accounting of the annuity's value separate from your actual contract value. It's a hypothetical alternate value used solely for purposes of the income rider. It increases each year by the greater of the contract value increase or the annual credit, which is the annual credit percentage multiplied by the original contract value. Now here's the benefit of these riders. After a certain amount of years, you can turn on the income rider, which will guarantee you can withdraw the annual withdrawal amount every year for the rest of your life, even after the contract value depletes to zero. The annual withdrawal amount is the annual withdrawal percentage multiplied by the protected value, not the contract value. Let's walk through this. Here's a graph of our same variable annuity from before. The orange bars are again the annuity's contract value each year. As before, it went up when the mutual fund went up and went down when the mutual fund went down. But with the addition of the income rider, its growth would have been even less each year because there would have been an additional 1.8% in fees deducted every year. Recall the fees were already 1.2% per year in this example. With the extra 1.8% in annual rider fee, this variable annuity would have had about 3% deducted every year in fees. These blue bars show what the protected value would have been. Again, the protected value would have gone up each year by the greater of the increase in the contract value, or $7,000, which is the annual credit percentage of 7%, multiplied by the original contract value of $100,000. In this particular rider, the protected value increases for 5 years and then stops. This 5 years is the accumulation phase. Then starts the payout phase, at which point you can turn on the rider and start taking withdrawals under the guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefit. In this case, your protected value would have increased to $143,500 during the 5-year accumulation phase. If you then turned on your income rider, you would have started receiving your guaranteed 5% annual withdrawal, which would have equated to a $7,175 annual withdrawal for life. You can see in this graph that I'm projecting out until 2029. Now obviously I have no idea how the mutual fund and therefore the variable annuity contract will perform in the future, but for purposes of this illustration, I'm assuming a consistent annual gain of 7.34% for the mutual fund. 7.34% is the average annual return the fund had over the last 10 years, so I'm just simply projecting it will average the same going forward. Each year you take your $7,175 guaranteed income rider withdrawal, your contract value will decrease by that much. And your contract value will continue to decrease by the 3% fees each year. So as you can see here, even though I'm assuming your contract value would otherwise go up by 7.34% a year from the investment in the mutual fund, those gains are more than offset by the $3,000 to $4,000 of fees each year and the more than $7,000 of annual withdrawals under the income rider. As you can see, with that said, the contract value is expected to steadily decrease over the next 10 years. If you live long enough, it will deplete to zero. That's where the real value of this income rider comes in. Even when the contract dwindles to nothing, the insurance company will still pay you $7,175 every year until you die. I'd like to reiterate the difference between the contract value and the protected value in our example. The protected value grew to and stays at $143,500, but that isn't the amount of money you'd actually have. In other words, if you wanted to take out all your money, you would not be able to take out the protected value. The protected value is only this sort of phantom base of money that exists solely to calculate what your 5% annual withdrawal will be under the rider. If at any point during the payout phase you wanted to actually liquidate your variable annuity and leave, the amount you'd be able to walk away with would only be the contract value. Let's look at 2018 for example. Assume you wanted to take all your money out at that point. You wouldn't be able to take out the $143,500 of protected value because that's not a real pot of money. It's just a hypothetical accounting record. Instead, you'd only be entitled to take out the contract value, which was just shy of $100,000. These riders can be real confusing, but hopefully the graphs help make better sense of things. It's important to understand how income riders work because they're common selling points in many variable annuities. I'd like to mention a few other things to keep in mind with variable annuities. First, there is no standard set of features per se. Insurance companies are really good at constantly coming up with new products and tweaks to existing products. If you go shopping for a variable annuity, you'll quickly notice how ridiculously difficult it is to make sense of all their different names, features, and riders. And to further complicate things, because variable annuities have you invest in actual mutual funds, you need to not only understand all the terms and provisions of your annuity, but you also must understand the fees and strategies of the mutual funds in which you invest. And that takes me to my second point. Pay real close attention to your annuity contract before you commit to anything, and fully understand the underlying mutual funds. The annuity contract itself is likely to be a few dozen pages, and supplementing that will be what's called a prospectus. In the case of the variable annuity I use in our example, the prospectus is 228 pages. I'm sure you'll have no trouble reading through and understanding all of it. Next, while this shouldn't necessarily drive your decision as to whether you do or don't buy a variable annuity, it's important to know how their fees work. Unlike many other forms of annuities that bake their fees indirectly into the product and call themselves no fee, the fees in variable annuities are explicitly clear. In our example, you pay 1.2% per year in administrative, mortality, and expense fees. Furthermore, if you add the income rider, that's another 1.8% per year. So now you're at 3% in fees each year, and that's on top of the 0.92% built-in expense ratio of the mutual fund. Combined, you'd be paying about 4% per year in fees in this example. Now, unfortunately, this level of fees is fairly common for variable annuities. Expect to be paying about 4% a year all in if you add the income riders. And keep in mind, variable annuities pay commissions, often very large commissions, especially when you start tacking on the riders. With riders, it's common for sales commissions to be close to 10% of your initial purchase price, and that commission is typically paid to the agent soon after selling that contract. That's one reason why there are such large surrender charges in annuities, because the insurance company needs you to stay in the contract long enough for them to make enough money to recoup the commission they paid to the salesperson. So if you leave early, they effectively make you pay the commission by way of the surrender charges. And annuities have very interesting tax implications. Because annuities are tax-sheltered vehicles, you won't owe any taxes on them until you take money out. And depending on what kind of money you use to buy the annuity, your withdrawals may be fully or only partially taxable. If you bought the annuity with tax-deferred money, like from an IRA, 100% of your withdrawals will be taxable and also subject to a 10% penalty if you're under age 59 and a half. If you instead bought it with after-tax money, a portion of your withdrawals will be considered a tax-free return of your initial contribution. The other portion will be treated as taxable interest on that contribution. Annuity taxation can be really complicated, but thankfully the insurance company from where you buy your annuity will provide you with annual statements of what's taxable and what's not. Lastly, only buy annuities from highly rated insurance companies. Keep in mind you're buying something that potentially has a multi-year financial guarantee. You want to do your best to make sure the insurance company behind that guarantee is actually going to be around the whole time to make good on it. There are independent companies that rate the financial strength of insurance companies. One of the most well-known and respected is AM Best. They have a rating scale that ranges from A++ to D. You only want to consider buying annuities from the insurance companies that are the strongest rated and therefore the most likely to be able to fulfill their guarantees to you. Specifically, only buy from insurers whose ratings are in the single A range. Don't buy from anyone below that. And before considering purchasing any variable annuity, I'd highly recommend you read an investor education piece put out by the Securities and Exchange Commission. It's called Variable Annuities: What You Should Know. As the name implies, it walks through all the key points you should know before buying a variable annuity. You can find a link to this document in this video's description. Before I wrap up, I want to share my thoughts on when a variable annuity might be a good option for you. Honestly, I kind of struggle to come up with scenarios where a variable annuity is a person's best option. I like the idea of income riders because I value and appreciate sources of guaranteed lifetime income. In my opinion, those riders are the only real benefits of buying a variable annuity. But because the fees are so spectacularly high, variable annuities will always struggle to be good from a pure investment standpoint. With that said, I would only ever consider a variable annuity if you will definitely have the need for additional lifetime guaranteed income. Like if you won't have a pension and your Social Security will be relatively small. But even then, you need to closely weigh the pros and cons of what that income will cost you. Is it worth paying 4% per year for it? That's up to you. If your main objective is to grow your money, a variable annuity is unequivocally not the right answer. But if your objective is long-term safety and stable income, but with the chance to benefit if the stock market and bond markets do amazingly well, then maybe, just maybe, a variable annuity could make sense. Well, that's it for my summary on variable annuities. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, don't forget to watch my other annuity videos, What is an Income Annuity and What is an Indexed Annuity. Also, subscribe to this channel so you can be the first to know when new videos are posted. And don't forget to subscribe to my monthly newsletter, Retirement Planning Insights, which provides informative retirement planning tips and info. And if you haven't already, be sure to join my free Facebook group, Taxes and Retirement, where you can get answers to all your retirement-related tax questions. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.